Okay, welcome to my tutorial on how to make your own reusable Christmas crowns. In this version we are using felt as the backing fabric and some patterned Christmas fabric. You can get more information on the pattern, which is available on my website. In the pattern you get written instructions and you also get the template as well. The written instructions also give you instructions on how to make a reversible Christmas crown, but that's not the one we're doing in today's video. So I'm just ironing out all the fabric, getting all the creases, and then I fold fabric to try and cut through as many layers as possible. Basically, this is not something I recommend unless you've got a super sharp blade. So as you can see here, I have 8 layers of fabric, which I obviously don't recommend, but the template, I have cut both halves of the template out and I've joined them in the middle. You can just cut one half out and fold it, but it just doesn't look as nice, so I would recommend you cut out both halves of the template and then tape them together. So as you can see, I'm just cutting around my template now. So I do try and do this carefully, but obviously it takes a while because I'm cutting through a million layers of fabric. So there's a few different ways you can do this. I try and do all diagonals in one go, and then I do all the other diagonals. I turn the fabric round. You can pin the template down and then draw. Use an erasable pen and draw around the crown. It might be a wee bit easier. Obviously I try and do everything as quick as possible, so it might not be the most neatest way, or efficient actually. So these scissors I got off Amazon, they're absolutely amazing. Okay, so that's now all cut out. We're ready to place it face down on the felt with our ribbon as well. Yeah, you can see I've got my 8 hats, which I haven't done again, it's a wee bit too much. So you want to put your pattern fabric face down, or right sides down. Then you got your ribbon, and you want the shiny side of the ribbon to be facing towards the pattern side of the fabric. So when you turn it all the right way around, the shiny side of the ribbon will go around your head and will show to the outside, so whoever's looking at you. So yeah, so shiny side is facing upwards, and then the pattern fabric is right side facing down towards the felt. I hope that's clear. So then I'm just pinning down the ends of the ribbon, and I pinned it in such a way try and make sure that it doesn't move when I'm sewing, because you don't want to catch the ribbon when you're sewing. So I pin down each triangle just with one pin. And just cut it out. I just cut, as you can see, one long line, like super lazy. You could do it so you could cut out the felt to match as well, but then I feel that's just way too many seams to line up. It's just costing yourself extra work. So I start in the middle on the far end of the center point. I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I use number 2 stitch length. I use a walking foot as well, which it lives on my sewing machine. So you can see here I'm going over the ribbon a few times. I just want to make it extra secure because I want the cracker crowns to last as long as possible. And I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance going up the sides of each point as well. So when you get down to the bottom, I've made so many of these now I know where to turn. But if you're struggling with getting the turn right and making sure that your seam allowance is correct upon the next diagonal here, just draw on your seam allowance with a 1/4 inch ruler. So where the 2 lines intersect at the bottom would be a turning point. And to be honest, it doesn't matter if you're a wee bit off anyway, to be fair. So having the felt as one big piece of felt helps with the sewing and turning at the very top of the crowns, because it means you've still got fabric underneath the presser foots. Okay, when you come into the end, make sure you leave a 2 to 2.5 inch gap for turning. So the next stage is to just cut off all the excess felt. Make sure you do this carefully, don't go too far down and don't trim any of the thread. Make sure you cut the corners as well. This is obviously to make sure to reduce excess bulk. So you can see I'm just cutting out all the little felt triangles. And then I'm going to cut across the top of each triangle, and then I'm going to put in little snips down each side, about 1 centimetre down. Then at the bottom where the 2 triangles join, I put 5 to 7 snips, depending how I feel. Some more snips down at the top. If you feel that you've still got too much fabric, you can use your pinking shears as well, or you can take out little notches. Just be careful that you don't catch the thread, because when it comes to turning, you will end up sticking through your turning tool and having to turn it wrong sides together again and re-sewing. Even when you turn it right sides out, if you think that you still got little creases, we fix this in the next stage. So you can see I'm just turning the crown right sides out. This is just a rough turning, just making sure that all the triangles are properly pressed out. I'm just making sure you're feeling the stitches as well. Make sure you're not putting your finger through. So I just go through again with the putting your snips in, because it is a really important stage. Because if you don't put any snips in, you end up with way too much fabric in those little gaps, and you get loads and loads of creasing which you can't get out. So or err on the side of caution, I put loads of extra snips in. Okay, so you can use whatever tool you want to poke out all your corners. I just use a size 10 wooden knitting needle I've had for years, and it works perfectly. Just be careful not to poke through, and then you want to just press all your seams out nicely. Make sure that your ribbons pull down as a tight, and then fold in your turning gap, and I'm just going to clip it down with a wonder clip. And obviously you can see I'm doing the same again. Okay, when it comes to ironing, I use my iron on the highest setting, and I also use the steam setting. Make sure that you only iron the pattern side, don't iron the felt side. I'm using just an acrylic felt, and I really don't want the felt to melt to my iron, but don't skip the ironing stage or pressing stage. It's really important. It just gives your hat a really lovely finish and really presses down all of the seams. Okay, so just choose any of your pattern stitches. Turn it to your pattern setting. I use a width of 5, and then I start at one end. I use a thread that matches the colour of my pattern fabric. The pattern stitches are great for closing up your turning circle, and it is also what I use to get rid of any creases where the triangles join at the bottom. So I go right up to the edge when I'm doing my pattern stitches. So when I'm coming down here now, sometimes you have to be a bit careful. You have to sort of push it under the foot because there's not much fabric. So again, I go down and turn and slowly pull apart the two triangles, and that gives any creases the space to sort of disappear. And this top stitching really does fix a lot of problems, as does the pressing. So you can see I slightly pull them apart before I carry on stitching. And it gives a really nice finish to your crowns. So if you used a thread in a contrasting colour, it would look really pretty. Yeah, so sometimes I just lift the foot up a little bit, push the crown a bit further under, just to make sure the foot's got some fabric to grip onto. And that is it. Just backstitch a little bit. So as you can see there, with the red crackers I used a matching thread, so you can't even see the pattern stitch, but it did make it look really nice. So here are just a few pictures of the crackers being demonstrated. There's me. So if you have any questions, put them down and I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you for listening.